Segment 3, Brian's always working, so we're going to let him work for a minute. We're going to take care of a
I'm just keeping busy.
little bit. What do you do with your hands? That's what I say. Well, hey, we have.
Devil's Playground.
I want to thank our sponsors, and after having the whirlwind of Gene Katie in here, Brian's going to bring some calm. He was fired up today. That was funny. But Triple X, want to thank our sponsors. Triple X on the hill, but on the level of Purdue tradition since 1929. Carrie and Greg Ayersman, good friends of the show, and of course John Basham and the folks at Basham Rental. They're already taking rentals for long into the rentals for 2016-17. John gets fired up a time or two at sitting across the way from us at Purdue men's basketball games. A great fan, of course. Christy Kuntz and the folks at Hilton Garden Inn when tomorrow's a big day. Stay at HGI tonight. Christy is about as hard working a woman as you know. That is a fine, kind of been through some renovation there, and they are great at hosting events down on the levee. And of course, State Farm agent Trent Johnson at trentismyagent.com. Love talking hoops and Purdue sports with Trent when we get that opportunity. Brian, you just got done with basketball. You got the whirlwind week of all time here, it seems, traveling to Iowa. I was kind of going to L.A. via Omaha, but you went to Iowa, then back to Chicago, and then flew up to Minnesota. Where's Purdue men's basketball? Obviously a critical win Wednesday night, though. For a long while there, you thought that was may go the other direction. But where do you see Purdue right now?
Oh, I think they have to get better defensively. I think, we're holding this Purdue team to a very high standard because of what they've shown to be capable of because of their aggregate talent level. This is not a complete team. This is not a flawless team. There's a lot of matchup vulnerabilities to this team.
Yeah.
But Purdue can get better at what it's doing at the defensive end of the floor. Obviously, there's a lot of weakness when you get bigger. You get slower. That's been an issue all season long. That wasn't the issue at Minnesota because they were playing without, a good portion of their size with Caleb Swanigan being out. They got smaller. The issue is opponents can isolate Purdue on the wing, and Purdue has very few people who can keep the basketball in front of them. As Matt Painter said today, they have to be ahead mentally if they can't stay ahead physically. And I think that's really where Purdue has to get, both in one-on-one, man-to-man defense and just in their team defense, because every breakdown isn't just a one-on-one breakdown. It's an entire team breakdown. You saw what Minnesota was able to do in that little ball screen action, which is very, very rudimentary, basic stuff.
And something that you see everywhere right now.
That the Gophers had so much success with. Now, the last time Minnesota got Purdue on it, they had it defended well. Rafael Davis rotated over, had the guy. Nate Mason just made a pass to Konate that probably is a turnover 8 times out of 10. Just made a really nice pass, good offense, beat good defense. But the point being, Minnesota had way too much success with that kind of thing. Purdue's just got to get much better defensively. And, as I said before, we're holding this team to a very high standard. They're 18-4, and we're kind of poking at their holes more than we're talking about their virtues.
Yeah, and I thought you wrote well in the Express yesterday about just the whole fact that statistics do lie sometimes, and this team statistically looks great defensively, and I do think I think that's a part of the story too. This is is it a situation though, in your view, of that they have to evolve as a basketball team, or do they? I mean, is that the right term? And what do you see as all right, if they're going to get to the next level, this has to happen, or is it truly, as some are saying about the Iowa matchup, Iowa's just a bad matchup for Purdue and a bad matchup for a lot of teams? Is it as much that of who Purdue plays? If they just go out and continue to play other teams that they match up with, they'll be fine.
Well, I think defensively it's a matter of compensating more than it is evolving, because Purdue has some deficiencies. They're not a quick team on the perimeter.
Yeah.
They have one guy who can guard the wing, who's proven he can guard a wing. That's Rafael Davis. You only have one of him, and he's gone next year, so you got to figure something out. And then you aren't as quick all across the board as you've gotten bigger. So you are vulnerable to the small ball that is much more prevalent in college basketball nowadays than the oversized basketball Purdue is playing right now. This was going to be an experiment from day one. Purdue's playing college basketball the way virtually no one else, maybe Gonzaga and a few others out there, are playing college basketball. It's a very difficult thing to pull off. There was going to be growing pains all along. A lot of those things have been magnified. A lot of those weaknesses have been exposed, over and over again. It's a matter of Purdue finding the best ways to compensate for them. Purdue is not a finished product, I don't think. I still think they have some upside to them. I think Caleb Swanigan is going to get more efficient at the offensive end, and I think Purdue can get better defensively. And when those things happen, I think Purdue will be better than what you've seen in the 4 games Purdue's lost. And, here we are talking about everything that's wrong with Purdue when Purdue is 18-4 and ranked right where they were ranked at the start of the season, by the way. So right now, they're right where, at least the pollsters before the year thought they were going to be.
Yeah. One thing that is right, and there are many things that are right, I would agree with you on this team, is Vince Edwards, and he seems to have, I don't know if confidence is the right word, maybe it's the aggressiveness offensively, but he's making shots too. But what about his play? And obviously, I also had to overcome some injury issues from Iowa to Minnesota.
I think, and I'm going to say this without trying to self-horn toot here, I don't know, that probably sounded bad.
Are there hyphens in that cell phone?
Been saying for a while, Vince Edwards is a player in Purdue's offensive mix that needed to be empowered. He needed to be brought into the mix as a primary guy, somebody who needed to be involved in the offense, needed to be aggressive, maybe instead of, Vince Edwards necessarily just playing off the big man. And I thought he was kind of lost in the shuffle there for a little while. He was kind of deferring and just kind of blending in. And now he's kind of breaking out. But I always kind of thought maybe if he was sort of that guy who, instead of him playing off the big men, maybe it was a little bit more even, where the big men were playing off him sometimes too. I thought maybe he was that guy who could take Purdue up a level offensively and be kind of Purdue's offensive equilibrium. And right now that's what you're seeing. You're seeing that guy who's not the, for lack of a better term, and I don't mean this disrespectfully, one-trick pony three-point shooter and just the gigantic human beings Purdue has around the basket. He's the guy who provides the balance between them. And he's such a good playmaker for other people, too. I think the more Purdue can involve him, and you have to give Purdue's coaching staff a lot of credit. They recognize this and started running more plays for him. It's very obvious, they're deviating maybe from their motion a little bit more and calling plays specifically for Vince Edwards. You saw it on that pin-down screen.
Yeah.
He came off at Minnesota to hit that big
Quick
three.
three and late
You've seen
in
it a couple times where they've specifically schemed to isolate him for a post-up. And every time he posts up, something positive happens, whether it's a score, whether it's an assist, whether it's just a good look for him. The more Purdue can get him involved and the more aggressive he is, the better Purdue is.
Well, one thing is, if I was a teammate of Vince Edwards, he's a fun guy would be a fun guy to play with, because even though he has been cranking it up offensively, he's an excellent passer, plays excellent team basketball. Guy that will be, if Purdue's going to have some upside, will have to continue to play the way he's been playing. I thought interesting also, now may have been a function of Kendall Stephens not being available, but the move towards, a little bit more of Johnny Hill and P.J. Thompson playing together. And tell me what you think about that in terms of just, again, Thompson, one of the greats right now in college basketball with assist turnover ratio, but just that ability to handle things maybe the way Matt Painter wants it handled, or how do you view that?
Well, I'm not in any way, shape, or form suggesting this was my idea. But 2 weeks ago, I think I asked Matt Painter on his teleconference, since you're having such a hard time finding that second wing defender, that kind of issue that was really exposed against Michigan, Illinois, and then a few other games, would you consider playing Johnny Hill with P.J. Thompson in the backcourt just to have a longer, taller, more athletic guy who could maybe give you some offensive punch? There'd be some, or defensive punch. You'd have some offensive trade-off to that, but the more important part of this was stopping people when you weren't able to otherwise stop people. And then sure enough, at Ohio State in the final minutes of the game, he started offense, defense, substituting for Dakota Mathias and Johnny Hill to try to get Johnny Hill out there to keep Cam Williams quiet after Cam Williams had 14 points in the first half.
Right.
He hadn't done anything in the second half to that point, but they wanted to make sure he didn't. So Purdue went with that Johnny Hill and P.J. Thompson combo. You sacrifice some shooting, but the way P.J. Thompson's been shooting the ball, maybe that's offset a little bit. Now, P.J. Thompson doesn't shoot the same shots that, Dakota Mathias or Ryan Klein would typically. So there's some apples and oranges there. But it does make some sense. If you cannot find a guy who could stop a secondary wing scorer, you kind of have to pull out all the stops. That might include playing Johnny Hill a little bit more with P.J. Thompson, so that you have both those guys out there.
Seems to work well. I haven't looked at the plus minus when they've been in together, but they've certainly done what they needed to do. I thought down the stretch you had that little bit of confidence that they're going to get not only defensively but get the ball where it needed to get to all the time. Question today about, obviously, an update on Caleb Swanigan. Do you think he plays tomorrow based on what you're hearing?
I don't know. He's supposed to be practicing right now, trying to practice right now. That'll kind of tell the tale, and then shoot around tomorrow will. If I had to guess, and I'm basing this on nothing, I would guess he probably sits out again, simply because I don't think Purdue's going to rush him back. I don't think you need to rush him back, and I think Purdue's good without him. I don't mean they're better without him. I mean they're good without him. Like I've said all along, Purdue, by bringing in Swanigan and implementing this big basketball model, Matt Painter kind of doubled down on a good team to try to make it a great team. So without that element, you're still left with a pretty good team. Vince Edwards is perfectly capable of playing the four for Purdue, and Purdue's got more than enough talent to win without Caleb Swanigan. So I just don't think they're going to rush him back. I think this is really kind of the first time he's been hurt, and you always wonder how guys are going to respond to that. I have no question in my mind that he is going to be pretty strong-willed about this and want to play and do everything he can in his rehab he possibly can. But there really is no hurry here. This being the short turnaround it is from the Minnesota game, and then Purdue having some time
A week
after this game,
yeah.
it would seem like this is a good opportunity to just kind of buy some time with him. Doesn't mean he won't dress and be kind of a game time decision, but it wouldn't surprise me at all if Purdue holds him out.
Boilermakers have a week off prior to heading to College Park, Maryland, and taking on the Terrapins on the 6th of February. That would be a Saturday game, I believe, at 4 o'clock. This is a team that you're seeing when you look back at the Minnesota game. A.J. Hammons also did some good things down the stretch to get the job done. Not only that, but the shoe play, which is getting a ton, which is still amazing.
Just leave it.
Yeah. I know, but I still can't imagine. Yeah. I've never heard of a guy carrying a shoe, but very, very impressive in its own right.
The question I have, and I don't know, I would like to know, is if he had used his second hand to secure that rebound.
I think that's a
Is
violation.
there some sort of rule about using some sort of
Somebody asked that.
object?
Somebody asked that. I heard that on. They actually were talking about it on. I'm shilling for Sirius XM, but I listened to the show and they were talking about that. Yeah, you can't use. I don't know how. I don't know what. I'm sure it's a judgment call to some extent, but you can get whistled for you lose control of the ball if you do use that. As far as from what I understand, so.
But it wouldn't have been like a technical foul.
No,
or
I don't
ejection
think.
or anything
I don't
crazy
think
like that.
so. But we have to better ask some good questions on that. Though I'm not sure we're going to see that again from that standpoint.
I would think that.
And the question of the week too. Obviously, Kendall Stephens is working his way through whatever he is working through. Hope to see him back. He's not going to be back tomorrow, though.
Correct. He's not playing tomorrow. That's been ruled out. He's not practicing. This remains a relatively, I shouldn't say relatively, this remains an open-ended deal. I don't think anybody knows when, this might end. I don't know if anybody knows for certain this will end.
Yeah.
But I'm sure everybody remains pretty hopeful here. He has remained at Purdue, obviously. He's still in school, going to class presumably, and it's just an open-ended deal. I guess when he's ready to come back, he's in communication with Matt Painter pretty regularly. It seems like they talked yesterday. They're going to talk again Monday. So obviously everybody wants him to get through what he's going through right now, and Purdue's going to give him the time he needs. If there's any sort of ceiling on that, I have no idea, and I doubt it's come to that point.
Yeah. All right, last in National Signing Day for football. A couple of minutes left in the show, but the Boilermakers, Daryl Hazel will be putting together, I guess it would technically be his fourth class on and announcing it on Wednesday. Still a little bit of intrigue left. I think we have our count at 18 commitments. And I know you wrote about yesterday some things with respect to the fact that there's a couple guys visiting this weekend. Do you expect a whirlwind down the stretch? I mean, some quote unquote roster changes, decommits, or whatever down the road. I mean, I guess anything's possible here in the last 5 days of this.
Yeah, it's kind of hard to boil down their numbers because coaches always know their numbers better than we ever can because they know what's going on their roster. They know what's going on with everybody academically. We would expect some people to leave the current team. That's already happened to some extent, but we would expect there to be additional attrition. Purdue's probably got a pretty good handle on that. Of the 18 guys committed now, I know of at least 2 guys who are going to probably push it academically. So Purdue's probably taking that into account. Based on the way they're recruiting, I would have to think they've got at least 2 spots left, maybe even 3, because they need an offensive lineman, we know that. They need a defensive end, we know that. They're also throwing out some offers to some kind of wild card positions in this class, like linebacker, like running back. They've dabbled with some tight ends. So they might even have 3 spots left, maybe even more than that. I don't know. They obviously know better than probably I ever could. It's easy to look at a roster and say they have this many scholarships, but it's never that simple. So I would say at least 2 more. They're going to get an offensive lineman. They're going to get a defensive end, come hell or high water.
Yeah, it will be interesting. Stay tuned. There's a lot more in depth of that on the site as well. So that will be National Signing Day. We'll have a lot of coverage about that next week, leading into Wednesday's signing day, which Coach Darrell Hazel will have a press conference in the afternoon. We'll be covering as events warranted, and we will be there as well. So, Brian, thank you as always, and we want to thank Coach Gene Cady for joining us today, and Jill Spencer for carting him around, and not that he's full of energy, and that was good, and we enjoyed that very much. I want to thank our sponsors, Triple X, State Farm agent Trent Johnson, of course, John Basham and the folks at Basham Rental, Hilton Garden Inn, Gordon and Allie and Cammie back in the back of WLFI. We appreciate all that you do for us. We'll be back next week, same time, and stay tuned because sometimes our time changes a little bit on our start time, but if you miss part of the show, we'll have the archive up here. Probably Gordon will have it ready in the next 90 minutes or so, and we'll have it up on the site. So have a great week, everybody. We'll be eager to talk about Purdue basketball. The Boilermakers will be traveling to Maryland. We'll be hitting that as much as many other topics as we lead into February. And more on Purdue Sports on goldenblack.com. Have a great week, and we'll look forward to seeing you next week on Gold and Black Live.